So recently I decided that I would go to the South Florida Frocktails. If you are not familiar with Frocktails, it is basically a cocktail party where you sew your own frock or dress, hosted by someone in the community, and all of us sewers get together and we party and we network and we laugh and we just have a grand old time, and it was amazing. I went to the South Florida Frocktails. It was their inaugural event. It was hosted by So Very Joe and 26 Diana, I believe, and they did, not I believe, that is definitely her name. They did such a phenomenal job. This was my first Frocktail. I have no point of reference, but I feel like the bar has been set pretty high. It was fabulous. They had the event at the Move Fabric store, which was also like really cool, I think, for sewers. I've seen bits and pieces of other Frocktail events, and I think this is the first one that was like hosted at a sewing shop, which was just so unique but so cool. Move Fabrics is in Miami. It's so Miami. It's in like a Wynwood. It's in the Wynwood area if you are familiar with Miami, and so it's just a gorgeous area. Super fun place, super fun time. It was top notch. They had hors d'oeuvres, they had drinks, they had a DJ, there was dancing, there was laughter, there was seamstress. It was so cool. I met so many people who I have followed for quite some time on the internet, and it was just really nice to actually put a person, as I was saying before my camera rudely cut off, but it was so nice to finally put like a person to all of the online personas that, again, I have followed and just enjoyed their content for so long. It was amazing. It was definitely a night to remember. If I'm not mistaken, the Atlanta Frocktails are coming up next, which will be hosted in October. I'm pretty sure I won't attend that one. I think for me this will probably be like a yearly event, as I can't justify, you know, just like up and leaving whenever I so desire. But you better believe next year, Miami, your girl will be there. Now, Frocktails, cocktail party, you sew your own frock, you get the play on words. So what do we need for the party? We need a frock. My very toxic sewing trait is that there can never be an event where I feel like I don't need to make a dress for. Do I have dresses in my closet? Yes I do. Could I have worn those dresses? Absolutely. Did I choose to do that? No. Your girl decided to hop on the struggle bus and make a dress. Now, it wasn't the struggle bus upon conception. I gave myself about 2 weeks to prepare, plan. So I'm a pretty quick sewist, so I don't need a lot of time at the machine. It's really the prep and the coming up with an idea, not only the coming up with an idea, but the settling on an idea that usually takes the most time for me. So I gave myself time to think, to plan. Who was still sewing the night before? Me, this girl, but we'll get into that. Anyways, so I was gifted some gorgeous fabric by Minerva, and I knew immediately that this was going to be my Frocktails dress. In fact, when I actually picked out the fabric for the month, I kind of had in the back of my mind that whatever I picked would need to work for Frocktails. The fabric that I selected in to be sent as a part of their brand ambassador program was this gorgeous purple floral cotton sateen fabric. Now, I've never worked with a cotton sateen before, so in my mind I pictured it to be like kind of like satin, right? A little thick, a little shiny. It is none of those things. The best way for me to describe it personally is it has the qualities of a cotton lawn in that it is pretty airy and it's light and it holds a structure, but it's not as like loosely woven as a cotton lawn. I feel like it's a lot of a tighter weave. Still very cool, still very flowy, still holds a lot of structure, but really soft at the same time. Really soft. So that is the fabric that I selected. I knew immediately that that was going to be my Frocktails dress. The next thing was deciding upon a dress. So I kind of went back and forth. I was thinking about one of these vintage wedding dresses that wedding dress patterns that I just picked up, but I haven't actually tested the pattern, so the fit could be up in the air, and I really didn't want anything hanging up in the air. I didn't want to cut into this gorgeous fabric on a whim and it not be something that I knew for sure I could like fix in the end. So after going through my patterns, I settled on Vogue 1723, if I'm not mistaken, is the pattern number. And I looked at the hashtag and I saw that there were people who were doing some kind of different things with it. And once I saw that, I feel like my mind opened up to the possibilities. Now, after I selected the pattern, like I said, I checked the hashtag on Instagram, and then I went ahead and I came over to YouTube to see if anyone had sewn up the pattern and if they did any reviews on it. The two reviews that I watched and I found very helpful I will link in the description box below. The first one was done by 85th and Wade, and I watched her put together the I watched her review of the dress, and my takeaway from that was that I could definitely whip this up without taking up a massive amount of time, and that it was a pretty simple dress to construct. I didn't get the feeling that she got tripped up by anything. She gave me the feeling that she kind of just breezed through the dress, and so I was like, perfect. I need that confidence going into this. The next review that I watched was by Talisha of Creativity by T. She actually sewed this as like a little black dress challenge, if I'm not mistaken. She sewed it as a holiday dress, and upon watching her video, my takeaway was that the way that the dress is drafted, if you are fuller in the bosom and the buns, it is going to cause the dress to rise up. So her dress, when she wore it, even though when it's on a hanger, it was completely level, when it was on her body, it was giving a high-low effect. And the pattern just kind of like hung away from her body as opposed to going straight down. So from that, I took away that there were probably going to be some modifications that I needed to make to the pattern in order to get it to hang completely level, because I didn't want my dress to have that high-low effect. So thank you to both of you ladies, if you ever see this, for doing such thorough reviews, because it did help me a lot in my construction process. Now, the next thing was the actual pattern pieces. So I knew that I was not going to do the pattern as it was in the envelope. The pattern has a very high neck, and then the ties go around the back of the neck. However, for me, first of all, I have learned in these recent years that I don't love myself in a high neck. I like to have some like openness here. My neck width isn't very long, and so I feel like having something like that just completely cuts me off, and you just get chest and face, and that's not what we're going for. So I knew that I was going to have to drop the neckline, but I wanted to keep the ties. My workaround with that was, since I wanted to keep the ties and they were no longer going to be at the neckline, I would need them to be in the back. But since the dress is a high neck and a high back, it meant that I would need to drop the back. And once I figured I'd need to drop the back, I figured I'd really drop the back. So on the pattern pieces, I went ahead and I created a V-neck for the neck part, and then I scooped out the back pretty darn low for the back part, and that would give me room to put in the ties, and it also give like this open back effect, which is like perfect for a party. I'm gonna go ahead and cut to me trying on the mock-up of the dress to explain that better to you. Okay, so this is where we are at with the mock-up. Basically, like I said, I went ahead and I took the length off of the back, and I feel like everything is fitting pretty good for the most part. I don't know if you can tell like from the camera view, but this is what I'm talking about. Like the dress kind of swoops up at an angle here instead of it being completely level like this. If it were to be completely level like this, I'd be pulling the dress too far forward, which would cause it to raise up in the back. So I think that I've self-corrected that in the next version. One more thing that I'm going to do that I forgot to mention was, I feel like there's too much fabric up here on the side for the arm side. So I'm gonna pin it in here and then grade it out towards the hip. So just taking in this, but maintaining the fullness on the bottom, because I do like how it hangs away from the body. And let me turn around. So this is the back. Like I said, I've just scooped it out to give it like a nice like low back effect. Right now it's showing my bra, but I think that's just because this has been opened a little. I may have to add a smidge back to it. I may have scooped it out a little bit too low, considering that I still need to add a lining, but for the most part, I like where we're at. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that last alteration and take off some of this, and then we can alter this piece and actually get to cutting out the fashion fabric. And so as you can see in the mock-up, I gave it a V-neck. I scooped out the back. That is where the ties would go, in the middle of the back. And then I also removed, I want to say about 3 or 4 inches from the hem. And then I went back and I removed another one, because I also knew that I wanted this to be a pretty short dress when all was said and done. Once the mock-up was done, I went ahead and I cut out the pattern pieces. For the sleeve, however, I did not use the sleeve that came with the pattern. The sleeve that I used actually came with the vintage wedding dress pattern that I told you I was originally thinking about using, which I'll have up on the screen for you so that you can see it. So I went ahead and I used that screen because, I used that sleeve because that sleeve was much larger and much fuller, and I wanted pretty dramatic sleeves on this thing. So this is the sleeve, and just for context, this is the front of the dress. So literally the sleeves are about as big as the dress. I don't know if this is the right choice, but this is the choice we're making. Wanted pretty dramatic sleeves on this thing. Another thing that I did to it was I extended the ties because I wanted the ties to be a little longer. So I think I added about 6 inches to the end of each tie just so that they'd hang a lot lower in my back. I don't know why, but I love a good tie. If you've watched my channel, you're probably picking up on that theme, is that every few makes is gonna have a tie in it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, let me show you the actual dress. So this is probably not a surprise to you because as I was talking earlier, I'm sure that I put in shots of me wearing the dress with different people at the party, but this is it in all of its glory. So this is the front of the dress, has the nice v-neck, it has the puffy sleeves, the elastic waist, and then the little ruffle hem. And then this is the back of the dress. I didn't get a lot of pictures, believe it or not, of me with the back of the dress. I think I'm gonna go ahead and put in my 360 feed so that you see me kind of like dancing and you get the full view of the back of the dress. But this is the back of the dress. It goes down not too low. I wanted it to go down bra strap, but I ended up scooping it out, as you saw in my mock-up video, a smidge too much, and so it went a little bit below my bra strap. So between you and I just omitted the bra. And that was my solution to that. And then it has the tie with the nice long bows. Now, the cool thing about this dress is the inside of it, because once I put in the sleeves, while this fabric does have a little bit of body, it doesn't have like the same structure that you would get with, say, your quilting cottons, right? So if I make a dress that has a puff sleeve with a quilting cotton, that sleeve needs no assistance. It's going to sit up. It's just a stiffer fabric. This is a much softer fabric. So what was happening to my sleeves is they kept dropping. So while it is a gigantic sleeve, when I put it on initially, it was just drooping, and that caused a lot of panic. And so I kept trying to figure out how I would give structure to the sleeves. My first thought was I can just put in shoulder pads. So I have some shoulder pads in my stash that I've taken from like old 80s dresses that I thrifted and remade. I'll link that video for you. But I have those shoulder pads, and so I figured I'd try and put them into this dress. But what they were doing, because they were so heavy and it didn't match the weight of the fabric, it was like pulling, and I was getting drag lines. Also, it was causing the shoulder seam to sit up and not lay flat on my shoulders. So I had to take those out. Then I started thinking about sleeve heads and making a sleeve head, and that was my next solution. So I got a piece of organza and I cut it into kind of like a flat moon shape. So you know there's like the crescent moon, like the dip and then the hump. It just has the hump and then the bottom is flat. So I cut it into a flat moon shape, and then I went ahead and I gathered it and I put them in, and that was like the beginning of something good. But it wasn't enough. So after that, I went and I got a piece of horsehair trim and I just folded that and put it on top. So this is what the inside of the sleeve looked like. So underneath, I have my my organza that's just been gathered and stitched, like stitched in a ditch at the shoulder seam. And then on top of the organza, I have the horsehair trim that's been stitched down. And what that does is it just allows the sleeve to set out like really nicely, like without drooping and being super flat. So it gave the sleeve the body and the structure that it needed to kind of like stay up on its own throughout the night. And I'm really pleased with that. The dress is fully lined, but I believe that's the thing of the pattern. I believe the pattern calls for the dress to be lined. Even if it didn't, I would have still lined it just to nicely encase the sleeves on the inside. And the dress also has pockets. Now, because I took so much out of the pockets, I forgot to account for the fact that the pockets would need to be moved up because I was making the dress so much shorter than it intended to be. I think if you look at the pattern envelope and the pictures on social media, for most people this dress falls right above their knee. For me, this dress is like mid-thigh maybe. So I took a substantial amount of length off of the bottom, and I forgot to account for that in terms of the pockets. So while it does have pockets, they are unusable, and sadly I am actually just gonna have to close this up and remove these pockets because there's no use in them being there. So that is my Frocktails dress. I am extremely proud of this dress. One of the briefs that I gave myself mentally in creating this was that I needed to create something that would work for Frocktails but would also be easily integrated into my closet. I personally am not a fan of special occasion dresses because I don't like things that you can only wear one off, as it doesn't fit my life, and the amount of time and finances that I put into sewing my clothes, I don't know, I just don't love it. I know some people do it, and to each their own. We all have our own, like, you know, things in sewing, but that's my thing. So this will definitely be easily integrated into my closet. Like, definitely. I mean, it's not like a everyday dress, but it's definitely like a date night, a going out to lunch without the kids because it's too short to wear with the kids type dress.